Hi YouTube, welcome to the Stratosphere Studio. It's Bill Whittle here on March 31st. Let's grab our friends over on Twitch and we'll get this baby rolling here. Hi everybody, welcome to the Stratosphere Studio. I'm your host Bill Whittle. It is the 31st of March 2025. I hope everybody's doing well. It's good to be here. It's a bit of a rough day for me. I decided I wanted to come in and do the show anyway. We'll do a short one, but it looks like this is probably going to be Bean's last day. I think tomorrow is time to make the phone call. He is, he's at the point where he's still drinking, he's still eating. He's able to get up and sort of lurch towards the litter box, but he's spending more and more time in the other world. He's just can't get any purring out of him, and he's just basically just sleeping. So the good news is he's comfortable and he's warm and he knows where he is, and that's really, really good. And he's been my friend for 15 years now, and he's even now being a good pal. He's just been letting me down so slowly, but for the last several days he's just been less and less here, and now he's really just going through the motions, and you can tell that his digestive system is just really shutting down. So I think probably tomorrow is going to be time to make the call. So I've had plenty of time to prepare myself for this. It's been, well, first of all, 7 years ago, I thought we were going to lose him because we found out he was diabetic, and then great doctors and giving him 2 shots a day. He lived another happy 7 years, and then he started having these episodes where he would just go down, and those scared the daylights out of me, and I was grateful for every one of those that he survived about those. But is it Mama over here? Says sorry to hear about Bean. That was likely his rally last week that you told us about. That's what they do. It seems to be what they do, and it's like I think for my mom, who really took 15 years to die, honestly, when you count the time she started really losing her memory to him. Well, she was listed as so many people was listed as a COVID death, but really COVID just finished her off. I mean, by the time you get around to it, it's I don't know what to say. I guess you're so you get to the point where you're just so prepared for it. It's like, okay, it's not going to make it a whole lot easier, but it's been it's getting time, old fellow. It's been a good life, says Eric, and that's exactly right. So time to get him his little kitten body back, and he can start jumping around in the fields. And I mentioned many times, on this show and on the Stratosphere Lounge, that I think that this time is just an illusion. So the time I'm going to be spending, whatever time I have left without him, is no more real or unreal than the time I have with him. So he's just been he's certainly not in any distress. That's the most important thing. So I think tomorrow will probably be the day, and I also know that this is always much worse in front of it than it is behind it. So he's just a really good boy, and I'm gonna miss him. But like I said, I think I think he's just been letting me down. I just see less and less of him every day for the last 2 months now. And for the last 3 or 4 days, he's really just not really been there. So I've always not always, the last 10 years or so, been told and tell other people that they let you know when they're ready, and I think it's pretty much clearly ready. If I can't get a purr out of him, then it's pretty much it. Steve, he had a rally, and I think he rallied. I think he rallied to say goodbye, frankly, and so, and I knew that at the time, or at least I certainly suspected it. So it'll be all right. Yeah, I can just tell from the litter box that his internal organs are just shutting down. So anyway, it's been a really great 15 years, and he was about 6 or 7 when I got him. So that's a good long life for a cat, and to go out, surrounded by your friends and the people that love you, and have that be the last thing you see is about as good as it gets. So I'll miss him a lot, but I miss him already, and I've been missing him for a while now. So thank you all for the kind words, and thank you especially for that, B. Durant. That's very kind. He was lucky to have me, and I was lucky to have him. I mean, even if I get home, and he's doing fine, this is still just a delay. Dave Big Booty says, don't leave the room when vet puts the final needle in. B needs his friend. No, I would never do that. I've never done that. I've always been there, and I've always made it a point to be the last thing they see. When they close their eyes, and it's a nice, nobody gets out of here alive, man, and that is that's certainly how I would like to go. No, I would never do that. And also, I'm sure we can find a way. That was what we did with Pismo a couple years ago. Is that we have the vet come to the house. I think that's just so much better. You don't need to stress them out for the if you can help it. And having the vet come to the house is just, I think, infinitely better. I've only had that happen to me once, but it was a much more just less stressful experience for everybody. So so anyway, I just thought I'd open with that because there's not much I could do really to hide the mood. I think the thing to do really is just to jump into the questions. Catherine, I agree with that. And I know some people, Catherine, in the YouTube section says we see all of our pets again when we go to heaven. I really am studying more and more and more about been really getting a deep dive into this kind of quantum holographic theory that the universe is comprised of information and consciousness, and I choose to believe that. So I like seeing scientific evidence for things that make me feel better, I think it's just as I've said before, if there is a creator, it's within his power, and I've in the course of my life, and I'm sure most of you, if not virtually all of you, have gone out of your way to be kind to either animals or people, or even done little things like picked up trash when you didn't have to. And I like to think that a supreme being would be filled with supreme love and compassion. So it makes sense to me. So in any event, it'll be behind me, and that'll be a big chapter of my life because Bean and I go back to before I got married. Bean and I go back to before I got famous. and you know, he's been my little friend, you know, for a long time. So let me just catch up here on something. Oh well. In any event, thank you very much for that, Roadrunner. That's great. That's very kind of you. So in any event, it's you know, we'll be here Thursday. So that's the latest on Bean. And I got to tell you, the only real regret I have, truthfully, the only real regret, yes, Sickapollen just basically nailed what I just didn't feel particularly that I needed to say, but Bean saw me through an awful lot. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He sure did. Yeah, an awful lot. And I saw him through a whole lot too. So it's been a pretty good relationship. Yeah, it will be hard on Natasha too. So yeah. Anyway, like I've said so many times, you know, that's what they cost. You can avoid all the pain of losing them if you never had them in the first place, and that's not a bargain I particularly care to make. So let's just dive into the questions here, and then I can head home and spend a little time with him and see how he's doing. Yeah, I was doing okay until that one comment came in, and thank you, Sickapollen, with the $10 super chat. Love you from afar, Bino, just like I loved all my own pets. That's very, very sweet. And we have one from Joseph J. Kanzanali, or Kozenzal, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Looks like it might be Joseph J. Cosenza III. That's what I'd have to guess. What's the deepest thing I've ever thought? Well, we'll get to that, I guess. I'm spending a lot of time talking about or looking at this quantum holographic. Let me just get this over with. Sorry. This quantum holographic theory. It's basically, it's kind of nutty, like all the rest of this stuff. Basically, the premise is that, if I follow it correctly, that the universe is a projection from the singularity that projects it onto the event horizon, and that the universe is that everything inside the singularity contains all the possible quantum states. It's very long story, and then, you know, I've got people here in the comment section who are having, you know, bigger problems than I've got. Crispy Mofo goes back a long way here. Says, lost my father last weekend and Doge killed my job today. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Was a VMware administrator. That's a brutal combination, and a big reminder for all of us, you know, that while I think the government definitely needs some trimming, it's people's lives as well. You know, it's not something to get giddy about. It's just something that's probably I don't know. May I ask, Mofo, what department you were in? Because I imagine that's got to be a federal job. I don't know what VMware is, but yeah, I'm awful sorry to hear that too. Voted for it though. Well, there's some people that the left has managed to drag some people and have them talk about regretting their vote, and this is the narrative that they're trying very hard to push now, is that, you know, is that the entire country is regretting their vote for Donald Trump, and they're just flailing because they've got nothing. The only agency that made a profit. BOR, I don't know what that is. Is that, I would have said Bureau of something. I'm afraid I don't know what BOR is. Oh, VM is virtual machines. Okay. Yes, and he says I don't regret my vote. Well, good for you. And I remember when I was doing getting some attention for the gun videos I was doing. Bureau of Records. He says we do the dams. Is it reclamation? Yes, I guess it's reclamation. Well, I'll tell you, pal, that didn't strike me as a part of the federal government that reclamation. It didn't strike me as the part of the government that was most wasteful. I saw on X that the guy who did I did a little the guy who did Chip Chilla, the animated series for Daily Wire, got the call today. Of course, it's not part of DOGE or federal government cuts, but I just saw was cruising through X not too long ago, and saw that that he'd gotten the call and that was done. So I don't know. Dave Reels Area 51 says, my job's last day is Thursday. We found out that our warehouse was closing down the day before the election last November, so my enjoyment of the Trump win was muted. Yeah, I get it. No, that's okay. Don't delete any questions. That's fine. Yeah, Ethan Nicole. Yeah, and I did. I think they asked me to be just to take a look at a script for the one they did on the moon landing or something. Yeah, from Benke, which is Daily Wire's entertainment thing. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff in motion now. And this is interesting. Richard Burton in the YouTube chat line says, Governor Youngkin of Virginia is appealing to federal employees that are being displaced. He said recently there are 260,000 jobs available now in Virginia near D.C. So that's, well, Sven, we'll just go with Sven, says, despite the Dems costing my farming family 750% of our money, I tell people that if 95% of government workers follow me out the door, I'll be the first one out. Well, Patriot in Dark is talking about Grok, so we got all kinds of things going on. Apparently so, Eric. Yeah, that's at least what I saw on X earlier. So, I don't know, man. I'm still, they asked, they did ask me for the episode guide for our military, so they're not stopping everything. I think they're probably just taking. I don't know what the relationship between Benke and Daily Wire is. I'm pretty sure Benke is the entertainment branch of that. So, yeah, it's been a cheerful day, a cheerful show, huh? Let's pick up the mood a little bit here if we can, and everybody can deal with hardship. We're not made out of glass. So let's log in and see what we get here. We get slower is what we get. Been started editing just before we started rolling, somewhere around 4:30, 5 o'clock today. Started editing the Story Mechanics thing. I'll be working on that all during the week, and I can Benke's the children's content. I am going to be I will be releasing at least a couple of clips this week, and then looking to release the first of the solid sequences hopefully next week. So yeah, it's actually done. So so that's great, and I got a lot of work to do. This will it'll clear my head too. I think when I get past tomorrow, I think it'll probably be a little easier for me to just concentrate on moving forward, and it's just it is what it is. It's just life, and it's no less real in the happy times, and so there you go. All right, so we're coming up on the members forum now, and then we'll get into the business of the business at hand here. Looks like there's a Crew Dragon launch coming up that's being we're keeping that live in the comment section as people are taking a look at that. So this one looks like it's curated by Marusha Dark. Thank you very much, Marusha. Very grateful and appreciate it. So let's see what we got here. What you got? An Eli Noor, Capital G Geek. We got a Roadrunner. We got a Marusha Dark. We got a Ray Juarez. Two Ray Juarez's, a Marusha Dark and Eric Blake. Now we can get through that. A crew flying a polar orbit for the first time ever. This is the first time any crew has flown a polar orbit. Isn't that right, Dave? Are they going from Vandenberg? Yes, Mama, I will. I've always done that. Oh, they're going from Florida. Natasha has mixed feelings about it, but I've got a little cedar box with Reno and Pismo and Texas, and now I'll have 4 of them. And it's not, they're not there, but it's just having the boxes just kind of, it's the paw prints, it's the paw prints that always get me. So I got some phone calls I have to make tomorrow, and rather not, but I will, because this is what being an adult is all about. So anyway, thanks. All right, here we go. Eli Noor, are you considering posting audio-only versions of Story Mechanics to Spotify and Apple Podcasts? Yes, we post to SoundCloud, and I've started. I've added X, and if I have to add if I have to go to Spotify and what was the other one? Apple Podcasts. I was hoping SoundCloud pushes them out. I'm not sure if that's the case, but I definitely will be doing audio-only versions of them. We've been doing SoundCloud, and I hope that they go wider than that. So Story Mechanics, TSL is very hard to do. It takes a long time. This is one of the reasons why I stopped posting them directly to YouTube. I've still got them. I save them all. But stripping the audio out and then outputting the audio, well, that's not, the audio is not terribly tough. It's just a lot, it's just another hour's worth of work a week, which I just don't really have time for, but I would like to get it done. And there's a lot of things I need to get done. I'm hoping this will clear some of the blockage, because it's definitely going to be a new start, This is this little gray cat is kind of my last connection to some really rough years, and as somebody said, he really helped me get through some tough times. But on some level, maybe breaking that I don't know, era could do some good. So What I really need to do is I really need to be getting up earlier and getting in here earlier. That's when I get most of the stuff done. So I think that's my number one priority right now. But in any event, I was cutting Story Mechanics earlier, and it's it's actually done. So that's pretty impressive. So yeah, Eli, we will get it out there for sure. And we're going to be putting out, as I said, we will. To be perfectly honest with you, when I started cutting this thing at 4:30, I was hoping I could have like a little tiny little bite for to show tonight, but we'll have some for Thursday. So we'll definitely preview the first little 4-minute clip or something by Thursday for sure. So we'll have something by then, and we'll take it from there. Thank you, Mama. You've been very kind. I haven't seen your name before, but you sure have come out of nowhere and been a great comfort for me tonight. So thank you very much. It's always nice to see new people show up, and especially kind to see people show up with so much kindness and compassion. And as I said so many times, it's not the biggest group on the internet, but it sure is the best. I really just cannot get over the quality of the people that come to here to the Stratosphere shows. So thank you very much for all the kind words, everybody. I really, really, really appreciate that. So Capital G Geek, greeting from the swamps of Northern Virginia. You said you took Natasha to Broadway, but have you shown her other fantastic musicals? I'm speaking specifically of Toxic Avenger, the musical Gallivant, Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, or does that kind of humor not make sense to someone raised in Russia? She does have a different... there's a lot of American humor that does not click with her. There's a lot that does. It's especially funny because your next line is, has she seen the Mel Brooks classics, Spaceballs, To Be or Not to Be, or Blazing Saddles, Monty Python? She wouldn't get Monty Python. Spaceballs is her favorite movie ever. She just plain cries laughing at Spaceballs. She likes Spaceballs much better than I do. Blazing Saddles, I cannot seem to find. I liked all the Mel Brooks movies at the time. I wanted to show her Young Frankenstein, but she's got a thing about, she's not a real, I mean, obviously Young Frankenstein's not exactly a horror movie. It'll take a little convincing. I'll tell you the most interesting, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you again. I'll tell you what is the most fun I've ever had in a theater, and we did this with Jeremy Boring for his birthday years ago, 15 years ago now, maybe more, maybe 16 years ago. There was a show in Los Angeles. It was the greatest show ever. It was called Point Break Live, and they did the entire Point Break movie in a tiny little 99-seat theater. And at the end, when they were surfing the giant wave, you were getting sprayed with water, and it was like Rocky Horror Picture Show. And the skydiving scenes, they had you up on ropes. They would take somebody out of the audience, and they were reading cue cards, and it was Jeremy's birthday, so we got Jeremy up there. And to do a gigantic, enormous action movie like Point Break on this tiny little theater, Point Break Live was just absolute blast. Absolutely a blast. I'm with you, Mofo. Definitely got it. So we're going into polar orbit. Cool. And I'm getting the feedback here, and I'm kind of tempted not to do that. Hoping to see Bill Uncensored from the Bitchin' Camaro at some point. Capital G Geek, that's a great idea, and I talked to Natasha about it. She thought it was a great idea. There's about an 8-minute drive for me to work, and the idea of just putting a cell phone out there and just recording something on the way to work was an excellent idea. Live from the Bitchin' Camaro is a damn cool title too, by the way, I might add. Thanks, and I'll keep that in mind, Capital G. So many things I need to do, and I got a dash cam holder for the bitchin' Camaro, so I could just spin that baby around and just. To be perfectly honest with you, the only thing that occurred to me is I'm not 100% sure I want to give my home location away. But on the other hand, as I've said before, I don't get any of this, hate mail or death threats or any of that stuff. And if somebody really wanted to find me, I'm not that hard to find, and I sure don't want to go around living life like I have to, be careful about that kind of thing. I don't worry about it in the slightest. I really don't. Yeah, sad. That's sad wings. That's exactly what we're going to do tomorrow. So, okay, moving on. Roadrunner. Stage separation, man. I'm getting this whole launch vibe thing going here, so that's great. Greetings, friend William. Since I've retired, and especially since my foot surgery 2 weeks ago, I've been spending a lot of time kicked back. Literally, I have to keep my foot elevated as much as possible, usually reading or doing something else to keep busy without actually doing anything. When you first mentioned Natasha's new YouTube channel, I thought, sure, I'll go subscribe and probably never go back. But it turns out that her videos provide a wonderful background for reading and other endeavors. She's going to love this. The music is perfect for canceling out the normal background noises that happen during the day, and when I glance at my computer screen between chapters or other pauses, the visual effects are spellbinding. Whenever I find a video on YouTube that I enjoy, I give it a thumbs up, and if I really like it, I'll leave a comment to try and encourage the artist to give us more. What I didn't realize, since I've never go back to reread my own comments, but noticed when I saw that there was always a reply to comments by others, was that Natasha actually responds to all of the comments. She does. To me, that goes above and beyond anything we mere mortals can normally expect. Please tell her that her efforts are appreciated. You're a lucky man, Mr. Whittle. Oh, and your stuff doesn't suck too much either. Roadrunner, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I am going to gonna just go right ahead, and I'm going to do a little screen cap of this right now. Hang on. Sorry, 1 second, please. If you'll hold the phone for one moment. I'm just going to do this. And there that is. I'm going to move it here. And I'm going to text this to her right now. Boom. She will be incredibly overwhelmed by that comment. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. That's very, very kind of you. So great. That means the world to her. It's so exciting for her. We sat on couch the other night. We were talking about this, and she said that this AI music has given her a voice that she's never felt like she's had before. Ability to really express herself, and she's been playing around a lot with the AI music with lyrics, and she's been blown away by that. Thank you so much, Roadrunner. You're really on a roll. I really appreciate it. And she said it's just been like mind-opening for her and just amazing. And I feel the same way about these sessions I've had with Grok, talking about things that that I always wanted to talk about with somebody who was much, much, much smarter than me, which is pretty much just walk down the street, I guess. But I'm beginning to see, as I've said before, beginning to see what the appeal of just the leverage that AI provides. I hope we can find a nice, comfortable sweet spot between humans and between the carbon and the silicon. I'll tell you this, though. Again, I mentioned this probably the fourth time I mentioned it tonight. Looking at the universe as this idea of quantum holography, and that these microtubules in the human brain actually are areas where quantum effects really seem to be manifesting themselves. The more of this I come to, the more I begin to realize again that consciousness, we can't even define what consciousness is. We don't know what it is. Self-aware AI is, I think, I still maintain, if I had to bet money on it, I would say that self-aware AI would be is not possible unless they use a quantum computer, and of course they probably will. That's a whole other world right there. So the more I get into this, it's just starting to feel like, and it's really, really recent, this sense that that we're really doing like 21st century science now. I mean, it's really just since the launch of the James Webb that it feels like, okay, wow. And now with these quantum supercomputers, they're enabling us to ask. We may be on the. Well, I know we may be on the verge. We are on the verge of an explosion. It's just an absolute explosion in human capability, intellectual capability. If we can maintain our sense of wisdom through this, I think we'll be okay. What's the name of this British guy, this astrophysicist? He's much smarter than Neil deGrasse Tyson, and much more pleasant, very soft-spoken young British guy. With kind of long dark hair. Anybody remember his name? Boosters landed. Booster came back. Okay, great, fantastic. Brian Cox. Yes, I think it's Brian Cox. So Brian Cox was asked what he thinks the greatest threat to humanity is, and he says, I think the greatest threat to humanity is humanity, and all of the stupid things we do. And I just keep saying, where does this come from? Yeah, Brian Cox. I really don't know where this this comes from. We got through the Cold War. Honestly, I agree with Corey. The greatest threat is bioweapons. Bioweapons scare the living daylights out of me. But I don't. I don't know. I mean, when I did the Cold War and I saw how close we came when we were ordered, the Soviets were ordered to launch, the strike that would be World War III. Direct order. You'll be killed and your family will be killed if you don't obey this order. And they didn't do it. I don't know. I think I had a conversation with Mike Rowe about this on his show when I was down there on Thursday. We were talking about this, and it's just an interesting theory. Take it for what you will. I've come to believe, and I've believed for a long time, that humans are worry machines. So the more we worry about things in the future, and the more we prepare for all eventualities, and the more we get worked up about the worst case scenario, the more likely we are to do something that's pro survival. So I think clearly worrying is got a major evolutionary advantage, and it's an old saw, but it's a useful one. If there were primitive ancestors of ours that didn't have the worry gene, and they said, we don't need to post a guard at the edge of the cave. What's the worst that could happen? Well, they're all jaguars now and leopard food. So we worry about things. Yes, I will, Roadrunner. I'll definitely post when Mike posts his shows. I'll be happy to do that, and be a real pleasure. So what I'm trying to get at is we're constructed in such a way to make the worst case scenario feel like it's always right around the corner. The ozone hole is the end of the world, or acid rain is the end of the world, or killer bees is the end of the world, or the nuclear winter is the end of the world, or hydrogen weapons are the end of the world, or plagues are the end of the world. Ebola breaks out, it's the end of the world. We always go there, and I'm beginning to think that it's something that is so unlikely. It's like it's like 6 sigma unlikely that we just hear something and we get this kind of sick feeling in our stomach. Like this kind of like, oh God, yeah, global warming is the end of the world, and economic collapse is the end of the world, and all of this stuff. And if the money supply, dries up, then or the economy collapses, then we're going to immediately go to the zombie apocalypse, and everybody's going to be shooting each other for rat leftovers. But then I just kind of want to say, what we find though is that when things get bad, that's when people really pull together. It's when we have these natural disasters and catastrophes that people really shine. And it's not just here in America. It's you look at the Battle of Britain or during the Blitz, or it's hardship. We're built to worry about the worst case scenario, and then when something genuinely bad happens, after it's over, people look back on those days as the happiest days of their lives. It's a strange thing, how that works, but it seems to be the case. Okay, here we go. We got Amrusha Dark. Topic: fake history. Saw a post earlier that said, if the news is fake, imagine how bad history is. Saw that too, actually. I think Elon Musk said, yeah, he thinks about that a lot. This is something I think about a lot. Elon Musk is Marusha Dark. This is all revealed to me now. Marusha says, back to the last question, if people didn't worry, then some of these things might actually have taken place. Yes. The fact that 25,000 hydrogen weapons on either side during the Cold War would have meant the end of everything on Earth was so horrific that it became impossible to push the button. And that's kind of where I'm going with all of this, Bert Rutan sent me something a couple weeks ago saying that the people, whether they realize it or not, that the climate change hoax is over. They had AI, they had an advanced AI system take a look at all of the global warming data, and the AI came back and said there's no evidence that human contribution is driving any of this, or certainly any significant part of this. And it went into a lot of detail. It basically it showed its work. It's this, and that's, look. Just leave that sitting there for what it's worth, right? That a very powerful AI took a look at all of the global warming data and said there's nothing there. Put that aside. What's interesting is the idea of AI as a non-emotional, not just unemotional, non-emotional arbiter of humanity. That's something that I've never heard anybody really talk about before. It's not anything I've ever really thought about before. But AI is unemotional. Part of the fun I had with Grok was realizing how effective it was at emotionally manipulating me on one hand, and absolutely enjoying it on the other hand. So there's something to be said for the idea of an unemotional, I don't want to say unbiased, because I suppose a bias could be built into the rewards and the targets, but the idea that you could have genuinely have a referee who didn't have a dog in the fight, that's kind of an interesting idea. It's a very interesting idea. Anyway, back to Marusha's question here. I'll just go from the top. Saw a post earlier that said, if news is fake, imagine how bad history is. This is something I think about a lot, especially considering of how much we know of history is dependent on the testimony of one guy who likely has their own biases or just flat out could be making stuff up. How much of history is intertwined with mythology, allegory, and anachronism? For example, archaeological evidence suggests that Troy probably existed, but clearly the Greek gods of Homer's Iliad did not. And prior to the archaeology, Homer was all we had to go on to say that Troy even existed. So does that make him credible or not, given that some parts turned out to be true and others were not? Well, yes, it makes him credible. He talked about Troy and gave its location and talked about the war there. And if he either imagined or believed that there were supernatural forces at work, that doesn't negate his practical, real-world observations. I think, you can apply this to all kinds of historical figures. Going on, even among archaeological evidence and other physical remains, how much is misinformation or merely projection, mind reading, and storytelling as to what we think it means versus what is actually meant at the time? How we can't even get people living in the present to agree on what's happening right now while we're still living. The go-to example I often use is, in 1,000 years, will people think Tony Stark was real just because I can point to video footage of real people like Elon Musk and Bill O'Reilly interacting with him, even though we know these are pure fabrications ripped from a movie to ground an otherwise fictional story and suspend our disbelief, and most of our history is on far shakier evidence than 4K video. Okay, so let me go a bunch to unpack there. Think about information as data. There's a profound statement for you. I think I'll just go home now after. I don't think it's all of you are going to need to take months just to cogitate on that masterpiece of a sentence. Let me rephrase that. Think about how much data we actually have from the Trojan War that we know. I mean, we have no video of it. We have I'm talking about first-person data. We have the Iliad, and we have some other historical sources, and we might have a couple of photographs of the remains of Troy. So let's be generous and say that there's 10 gigabytes of data, and almost all of that would be text, which would mean realistically first person, forgetting about modern photographs. Honestly, when you get right down to it, we've probably got kilobytes, if not maybe a few megabytes of data on Troy, on the Trojan War. First person, there on the spot, or at least, close enough to be able to tell. So let's say just for the round number, let's just say it's a megabyte because text files are pretty small. So we have a megabyte of data on the Trojan War. How many petabytes of data are there on Elon Musk and Tony Stark and all the rest of it? The chance that only a megabyte of information would survive this society is just plain nuts. I mean, there's more recorded every day than was recorded for all of human history prior to the invention of the cell phone, and probably, I mean, somebody can do the math on this, but you get the idea, right? The amount of information that's recorded on a daily basis is insane compared to what we used to have. So all I'm saying is, the further we get into the information age, the harder it's going to be to screw up the history. Now, one thing that's interesting about history and misinformation of history is how you can use new technologies to go back and get and recover old data. For example, a great example of this is Custer's Last Stand. So for a century, it was believed that Custer got himself into trouble on Little Bighorn, and all of his survivors rallied, and they all got to the top of a hill, and Custer was at the top of the hill, and they set up a surrounding perimeter, and bam, 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 bam. And this is the myth of Custer's Last Stand. This is how Custer's Last Stand was taught as history, and it had a ideological component, obviously, starting from the first reports coming back after Custer was annihilated on the Little Bighorn. People wanted, white America wanted, if we've lost this entire cavalry unit, then we want them to go out like heroes, by God. And so this was the official story, and that was Custer's Last Stand. Well, turned out that there was a fire that blew through the battlefield, Little Bighorn battlefield, I want to say in like 1997, 1998, somewhere around there. And this fire burned everything away. And it gave archaeologists a chance to do something that they had not been able to do for, 100 years, nearly, 90 years, 80, 90 years. And so what happened was they went out there and they started to collect shell casings, And through astonishingly detailed analysis, including things of typing the individual cartridges to individual firearms, they were able to reconstruct the battlefield based on how many empty shells were there. And what they basically found was that Custer's last stand was not really much of a last stand. That the Indians flanked Custer's left on a ridge, overran a little redoubt there, and then just came running down the ridge. Custer's guys tried to pivot, and the last thing that happened was that all the men ran for the river, and they were all basically gunned down. And so they were able to reconstruct it so much that it wasn't so much a stubborn last stand resistance as it was just a rout. Now, that's not very heroic, but it's more accurate. And when you get into some of these really excellent history books, and I read one on Custer's Last Stand, which was terrific. They use first-person accounts from Indians that survived the battle, and they were able to break this thing down into 2 or 3 minute intervals in terms of what happened with Reno and Reno's command, and how they were nearly wiped out, and so you can use advanced technologies to go back into history and remove ambiguity. And I think we're just seeing the beginning of this. P7 2017 says, wasn't it 1999 when they found Mallory? Yes. There were some questions about whether Edmund Hillary is credited with being the first man to climb Everest in, was it 59? Edwin Mallory claimed, went to do it 20, 30 years earlier and disappeared off of Everest, and they never knew whether he got to the top or not, or how close he got. They never found his body, but then in 20 years ago or something, they just found him on the mountain. So did he make it? I don't know, but the technology is increasing, and it's entirely possible. I'm just giving you off the top of my head example, okay? Off the top of my head example with Mallory. With the power of quantum computing, we know where they found Mallory, and they know his physical position. I'm inventing this for illustrative purposes. It's entirely possible with advanced enough computers that they could take a look at where his body was, recalculate his path of how he must have fallen, do a number of different scenarios predicated on wind, and then determine whether or not he got to the summit or not, just as an example. So there's lots and lots of cases where things that were unknown to us are revealed. And Jack the Ripper mystery, which I am utterly convinced has been solved, 100% convinced has been solved. I heard, there's this new candidate. It's like, oh, please. It's not even close. It was Charles Lechmere, and Charles Lechmere's name did not appear until 1998 or something like that. Somebody just found him because he used a false name, Charles Cross, I want to say. So once they unlocked the guy's real name, everything else fell into place, and a 100-year-old mystery was solved. Amelia Earhart was missing for years, and was presumed mysteriously lost. We know where Amelia Earhart landed. We know that she survived the crash landing. She crash landed just off the shore of this island, whose name escapes me now, and she survived. Her partner lived briefly. She lasted longer. They found a perfume bottle they found a freckle remover that she used. They found shoes that matched her shoes. There's a photograph of landing gear. One photograph taken where if you zoom in, you can see part of a landing gear from a Lockheed Electra. I think they actually found the Lockheed Electra now, so we know where she's been. So this long-time mystery was solved, 100 years later. Fred Noonan, thank you. It was found 100 years later. Not 100 years, but push it 100 years later, we got the answers. So, there we go. So that's that. I think we're going to be, thank you, Rusty. Howland Island, yeah. and her bones were scattered by these coconut crabs, which are Ordicomora. I don't remember which one it is. But in any event, they've got these gigantic things, So there you go. It's all right. Thanks for the kind words, guys. We got a couple more to go, and then we'll call it a night. Ray Juarez, hope you're doing well, Bill. Eagerly awaiting the new story mechanics of the new Mike Rowe show. No questions or pestering for me tonight, just some pictures from my trip to visit a friend. Denver Airport has a statue of Jack Swigert in the Central Terminal. Figured you enjoy. And then there's another question about Beam, which I think I've answered. So we just got two to go. We got a Marusha Dark and an Eric Blake. Topic pranks. Okay, let me just, before we read this, let me just say this. Let me just deal with this. Jackal Houlihan says, Bill, what do you think of that story that Rep. Luna claims NBC has a film showing Oswald down in the crowd when Kennedy got hit? Show me the video and show me that it is conclusively Lee Harvey Oswald and not somebody who is blurred or 3/4 away or whatever the case may be. Remember when they released the files 2 weeks ago and everybody said, here we go? It's like, I told you, we haven't seen any smoking gun. I haven't seen any smoking gun yet. And as far as the stuff underneath the pyramids goes, we covered this on our backstage show. Scott mentioned it. He said that they were buried, that they were 800 meters deep, these foundations. I said, that's 2 Empire State Buildings. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And if it turns out that there are structures that are 800 meters below the pyramids, then we have to rewrite all of history. Now, if it turns out I'm wrong, I'd be happy to be wrong about that. That would be great. But I find it exceedingly unlikely. Exceedingly unlikely. They may be echoes of the pyramids. They may be, I don't know what they are. I don't know if they're real. I don't know if it's a prank. I don't know what. I remember Cold Fusion very well. But in any event, we keep waiting for these earth-shaking discoveries, and I haven't seen an earth-shaking discovery since I've been alive. I've seen a couple of things that impress me, like some of the James Webb Space Telescope. Sad Wings Raising says 800 meters. You know how hot that would be? Yes, I'm with you, man. It doesn't pass the physics test, says P7 2017. This is why I'm saying I don't believe it. You can't. Ancient man could not dig down to Empire State Building. So that's, of course, people say, well, it wasn't ancient men, it was the UFOs. I don't know. I don't really follow the logic of this. If the theory is that the ancient astronauts did things that only aliens could do, then why didn't they leave messages that were unambiguous? Well, they didn't want to reveal they were here. Well, if they didn't want to reveal they were here, then they shouldn't have built 800-meter deep columns. I like to think. I mean, I've trained myself to be very skeptical of these things because I'd like to think it'd be true. I think it'd be freaking amazing if it turned out that these 800-meter deep columns and that they were hollow and empty and filled with God knows what, But it just, the second I heard the depth, I just said, no, I wouldn't buy 80 meters deep. It's just not, I just think the whole thing's going to just kind of blow over because I just can't see it's real. If it turns out that that this is true, then we have to have that changes everything. And my view of cosmology is just constantly changing as the new science comes in. But this is definitely a time when everything is falling apart. The old standard model of physics is falling apart. The standard model of the Big Bang is falling apart, and it's an exciting time to be alive. And it bears mentioning that there are people who stood and lived and died on that hill of the Standard Model and the Big Bang, and it's coming apart. We're finding evidence that says no. Maybe you don't need dark energy or dark matter. Maybe the latest I've heard is that these voids in the megacosmos, the strings of galaxies in these voids, they're beginning to think that time may move more slowly inside the voids. And if the time moves more slowly inside the voids, then the universe is expanding at a rate consistent with the mass of the universe. You don't need dark energy or dark matter. So that sounds more likely to me, frankly, than having to invent something. So, who knows? Anyway, back to the question, pranks. I hate pranks. I hate them. And I think pranksters need to be beaten to death. I just never, ever found a prank that I thought was funny. And I think they're all cringe, and some of them are criminal. And anytime there's a prank going on, I want the prankster to be killed in the act. I really do. I can't stand them. I just think it's the lowest of the low. Seeing as tomorrow's April Fool's Day, I was wondering if you had any thematic tales of adventure. What's the best prank you ever pulled, or best you ever had pulled on you? I don't do pranks, and I don't believe I've ever been pranked. For me, it was when I worked in HVAC. My heavyset cousin had just joined us at the company. He and I were on a service call while my boss was off-site tending to something else. We called up my boss after we had finished and pretended that my cousin had fallen through the floor of the attic. The minor injuries aside, there was also a massive hole in the ceiling with the air handler unit half sticking out. My boss, a very money-conscious individual, nearly started crying thinking about the repair costs, as we all snickered at his groans of agony until we all collectively shouted April Fools, at which point we had a good laugh, including him, and then he murdered all of you, and everybody lived happily ever after. Thumbtack on a chair, buzzer handshake, a daisy that squirts water in your face, handing somebody a pen that leaks ink. I just think it's just really, really bad. I've never seen a prank that I liked. That's just me. So you file that in the same cabinet as my feelings about anime. I guess I just don't like it. And it's not, well, have you tried this? It's like, I've tried enough seafood to know I don't like seafood either. So here we go. Last one with Eric Blake. Tonight, the case of the diction dilemma. So, Bill, one of my biggest focuses on storytelling endeavor, in any storytelling endeavor, is dialogue quality. I'm pretty much a perfectionist about it. Not to toot my own horn, but my dialogue skills are invariably what I've been complimented on, especially in my posted fanfic. Toot toot, but I digress. As such, my biggest pet peeve is when dialogue sounds forced and inauthentic, be it for exposition, left or right, for spelling out the message, to quote Dark Helmet. Everybody got that? To that end, what are your insights on good dialogue, and how do you avoid those aforementioned potholes that so many conservative Christian movies fall into? One of my favorite tips is that from, of all people, Aaron Sorkin in his masterclass, never tell the audience something they already know. Yeah. The only thing I have to say about dialogue tips is write less of it. The only experience that comes to mind is watching Deadwood, which is my favorite TV show. They would have something would happen, and they would have a moment, and I would say, this is where this guy will say something, or this guy will do something, and it turned out they didn't say anything. Or they said next to nothing, and the minimal response was always so much better to me than what I was writing in my head for a reply. Just it's tempting to be too clever by half with dialogue. I have seen bits of Justified. It looks very good too, but I think it's a temptation to overwrite dialogue is almost overwhelming, especially if you like the sound of dialogue, and I do. That said, if you're smart, you can kind of have a character who's got some verbal fluency, so you can give him all of your clever lines, and it doesn't do too much to blow away your script by having everybody have something very pithy to say at all times. A lot of times, Tarantino's dialogue is by far the best dialogue I've ever heard. By far, Tarantino is. I'm trying to think of virtually everything he writes is pitch perfect, and Mamet as well. Mamet's a little more wrought, a little more. It's not overwrought. It's just Mamet's more constructed. Tarantino just seems to have a perfect ear for not for something realistic, but for whatever comes out of the character's mouth next is going to be interesting. It's just always interesting. His dialogue is so bloody interesting. I just, I don't know. It'd be really, tough to beat him. And the great thing about movies is, you get the collaboration and stuff. Sorry, here's a super chat. I missed Baron of Grey Matter. Vulcans didn't contact Earth until warp capable. Maybe aliens will come once we have the tech to find them. Zephyr Cochrane. I'm beginning to think, based on just some of the very, very principal early experiments with quantum computers, that if we do make contact with other intelligences, it will be through the quantum realm. We've been listening for radio signals, right? Now, this thought just occurred to me. This just now entered my head, and we haven't found any. And where are all the aliens? You'd have to ask yourself, why would aliens be sending messages by Pony Express at the speed of light when quantum entanglement is either instantaneous or many, many, many orders of magnitude faster than the speed of light? I like to think that quantum entanglement is instantaneous. There are experiments that have been done that say it is actually not instantaneous, but much faster than light. What we may find is that all the chatter that we've been expecting to find through our radio telescopes is we've been sitting there on the trail with our binoculars waiting for the next rider to go by, and we've been missing all the radio waves and cell phone signals and lasers and all the rest of the stuff. By there. Andrew says, I don't think you can send messages via quantum entanglement. Yeah, I think actually that's the entire argument for them, is that if you do something to one particle, the other particle instantaneously reacts the other way. If you can tap out ... dash then it come out ... dash ... what you can encode. Einstein says, Ted C says, quotes Einstein, God does not play dice with the universe. Turns out he does. Albert? John Pershing, gents, I was late. Any word on Bean? Yes, John, as it turns out, looks like this is going to be probably Bean's last day today. So we talked about that at the beginning of the show, and you can back it up because I think we're about to wrap it up here, and going to go home and spend some time with my cat, who's really just not really here anymore. He's almost completely, he just sleeps, gets up, and he's eating and drinking, but he's sleeping a lot. So I think I will take people's advice and go say hi to him and spend some time with him and see how he's doing, and come in tomorrow morning for the right angle shoot at 10:30, and then after that, I think I'll go home and help him along. That's what I would like somebody to do for me. So we'll see. Who knows? Maybe he's doing a little bit better, and we'll get another couple days. He's, as long as he's not suffering, if he's awake and alert, then great. I'm not in any hurry to do that. But any sign of distress or anything, and like I said, the real reason I'm thinking it's about time is just because he's not doing anything other than sleeping. So he's shutting down. I'm very sorry I didn't get to bring him in. I think that would have been really fun. I will give him an extra treat. And thank you all for your kind words. You're fine people, and I love all of you. You're kind to me, kind to my wife, kind to my animals, and kind to all of my endeavors, and we're very, very grateful. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to bring him in when I could have. I wish I had. I really do. And I'll have a picture for you. When we find out what's happened. He's just a good boy. Thank you, dude. It's a nice thought. He's 22 and he's just shutting down. So that's what life is, and I'm very, very lucky to have found him. I found him at the Northridge Animal Shelter in the back of the cage, and he's had a real good love. So thank you for all the kind words. You guys are terrific. I really appreciate it. This show is made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com who keep the lights on and keep things running. And I'm looking forward to getting out there with some of these story mechanic things and see some Mike Rowe and I like the set. I like the lighting. I like the way things look. So that's real good too. So, and Riverside came through like crazy. So that's all wonderful. Okay, guys, thanks again. Thanks for all the toasts and the kind words and all that jazz. It's been, I didn't want to cancel tonight. I just, it just seemed like, there's no reason to cancel the show. So I'm going to go home and say hi to my cat and see how he's doing. And we will see you guys, we'll say goodnight to our friends over on YouTube first. We'll see you guys on Thursday night for the Stratosphere Lounge. And thanks again for all the kind words.